I'm going to talk a little bit briefly. I want to give Joe enough time to talk about what's going on in the Civic Center area and be able to answer your questions. But, kind of a basic question we get asked, why redevelop downtown? And even though probably a lot of you, most of you don't live downtown, maybe some of you don't work downtown, maybe go downtown rarely to, renew your license or what have you. We all recognize downtown. We all know the buildings. We all go there because it is everyone's neighborhood. It is truly the heart and core of our city that we need to take care of. But from an economic standpoint, we have to pay attention to the economics, and that is the downtown growth over the past 2 years has only grown about 2%. Now that's over an entire 20-year period. That's not 2% per year. That's from 1985 to 2005. Whereas the rest of the city values have grown about 100%, have doubled. So that's great, but not so great for downtown. And yet we still have the infrastructure that we have to take care of downtown, but it's not carrying its own weight. So this is a picture from about the 60s of downtown. Really, for the most part, developed out. This was the time period when downtown was doing quite well. And this is an aerial today. We've demolished so much, and that is really the biggest contributor as to why those property values really haven't gone up. We've taken developed land and created vacant lots of parking lots. And we've lost so much of our fabric over the years. The Amarillo Hotel, Municipal Auditorium, these are just a few examples. The Ross Hotel, wonderful old buildings that are no longer there. The Amarillo High School, which burned down, the Slate Theater, and countless other storefronts that were demolished. So we really have to begin to rebuild our downtown in order to create that higher property value, that better economic value for downtown. And I thought this was such an interesting image of the Paramount sign being taken down off of that wonderful historic building and then being put back up. So I think we have turned the corner, but it is something that we have to continue to pay attention to. And it's wonderful to see all of the improvements we're beginning to see in the streetscape projects. One of the lights has gone in here, our new pedestrian lights, the Happy State Bank project, Potter County Courthouse project, Polk Street United Methodist Church. If you go downtown, you'll start to see these projects underway. Of course, the Santa Fe building, bringing that wonderful building back to life, the Fisk building. Those projects wouldn't have happened if the buildings weren't there. But as I said, we still have to focus on downtown. That 2% growth isn't going to change if we don't do something. The pictures that I'm showing you really are just on Polk Street or a block or two off Polk Street. These are in our downtown core. These are indicative of the fact that we are still not there. We still have so much to do. So you've all seen this map, I imagine. We had a study done to look at potential land uses downtown, and specifically we wanted to focus on the Civic Center area of downtown. And the aerial that I showed you earlier is that area with so much of the vacant land, and specifically a lot of vacant land that's owned by the city. So given the fact that there is so much vacant land and opportunity there to rebuild our downtown, that we were focused on a convention hotel. You already have the Civic Center there, the Globe News Center. How do we build upon that? And like I said, I think you've probably all seen this. It recommends mixed-use development, residential retail, a potential multi-purpose venue, which Joe's going to talk a little bit about, a hotel, and a parking garage. One of the keys to this plan is the sharing of parking. We've tended to develop downtown over the past 40 years like a suburb, where you have a use surrounded by parking. We have to go back to that dense development downtown, or denser development with shared parking. So as we look at, how do we get there? What are downtowns doing that are successful? And there's a couple of key principles that every downtown that has achieved success, no matter the size of the downtown, it is a synergy of projects that really jump-started the downtown redevelopment. Whether you're looking at Bricktown or Fort Worth or Waco or Sugar Land or any downtown that's achieved success, They had a synergy of projects that jump-started that development, and they had a public-private partnership where both the public and the private sector achieved success. So we began to look at bringing in that private part of that partnership in a master developer. How do we implement that civic center plan to create the synergy of projects to get us jump-started on downtown? What a master developer will bring is a decreased risk and greater efficiency by doing all of the projects at once. You have one architectural firm, for example, that does all the projects instead of dealing with multiple architects on different projects. You have less cost, which goes to the greater efficiency and the enhanced quality and consistency of development. You have one developer you're pointing to make sure all of the projects work well. So in meeting with developers over about a year-long time frame, I met with Wallace Bajali in Waco. I met Joe and David Wallace about a little over a year ago in February of last year. And one of the things that struck me, if you've been to Waco in the last 5 years and then prior to that, it's just a dramatic change. They had invested funds in downtown redevelopment in a downtown that was really quite boarded up and vacant. They had projects on the ground. You can go to Waco, you can go to Sugar Land and other places and see their projects that were successful. They were willing to bring their private capital to the table, very important, especially in this economy, just not an easy thing to find. Their expertise, of course, they have expertise in achieving their projects on both sides of the fence. They have worked as private developers and also on the public side of the fence. David Wallace was mayor of Sugar Land for 6 years. Joe Esch worked in economic development for the city of Sugar Land and achieved success on that side of the fence. And they have coordinated successful communication and outreach efforts to accomplish these goals. So this is one of the buildings, and Joe's going to talk a little bit more about these projects. The Chamber of Commerce in Waco's new construction, part of an overall development that they did. One of the things that really struck me is they spent through a public-private partnership, the city provided the land, about $12 million of land that was bringing in no ad valorem value whatsoever. They invested about $80 million, and since that time, this is about a 6 or 7 year time frame, another $300 million was invested by other private investors in the downtown area and really transformed downtown Waco. The similarities really struck me. They have a warehouse district like we do, that many of which have been converted into residential mixed-use developments. So that vacant land, which was owned by the city, was bringing in nothing in terms of ad valorem taxes, is now bringing in $2 million a year.
We pay $2 million just to the city, $2 million.
Just in their projects, which doesn't include the other $300 million of projects. And there are additional lots being built now. And then Sugar Land was another project on the ground. This is a new build, but still in an urban fashion. That was something we really wanted to find here. We wanted to make sure we had a developer that understood urban redevelopment, which is not an easy thing to do. So since that time, February 15th, the city signed a contract with Wallace Bajali, which you probably read about. One of the unique things about this contract as a master developer is Wallace Bajali takes 100% of the risk on this project. That never happens. That just never, you just won't find another example like it, where a developer takes 100% of the risk by doing paying for all of the due diligence, the studies and so forth it takes to get those projects done. If the projects are built, Wallace Bajali would manage the projects all the way from design through construction, and would be compensated 5.5% of those projects if they're built. And very importantly, Wallace Bajali is analyzing currently potential funding sources for each of these projects. Our goal is to have no raise in ad valorem taxes. I don't know if we'll achieve that, but that is our goal, and I think we're headed in that direction. And then importantly, part of their contract is to analyze a new build versus historic, specifically the Herring Building as the convention hotel. I love this quote. You've got to be very careful if you don't know where you're going because you might not get there. What we hope is that you will help us figure out where we need to go and how to get there. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Joe, who's going to talk a little more detail about the Civic Center area project.